The times they are changing, as Bob Dylan wrote in his song. I got an email from a member of my board that talked about what's happening in commercial banking lending. And it started off, commercial bank lending dropped nearly $105 billion in the 2 weeks ended March 29th, the most in Federal Reserve data back to 1973. The more than $45 billion decrease in the latest week was primarily due to a drop in loans by small banks. And then they referenced also the annual letter of Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan's Chase. The bank's chief executive officer said in an annual letter that the failures have provoked lots of jitters in the market and will clearly cause some tightening of financial conditions as banks and other lenders become more conservative. So I want to point out, you can read that article and you can walk away with two conclusions from that. The first might be, banks are not going to be lending, so I guess I don't have any hope of getting any loans from banks. The second, and this comes down to mental attitude and how you perceive things, is to say, okay, so what they're going to be looking for, these banks, they still have to deploy capital. So how are they going to do that? They may become more conservative. We are working towards good deals with good coverage ratios, hopefully, in markets which are stable markets. So this ought to be the type of loan they are looking at. The other thing certainly that this points out is that when you have interest rates rising as they are, multiples of purchase will go down, meaning that the targets that you're working, the banks will say they're not going to support the same purchase price they would have supported when interest rates were half. Why? Because the coverage ratio, as debt goes up as a result of increasing interest rates, goes down. So you need a lower price to get the same coverage ratio that you would on a loan. But that doesn't mean that they're not still making loans. It also means that you have an opportunity to talk to a seller and explain to the seller that you're not going to be happy with what a bank says the business is worth. Certainly, yes, it would have been great if you sold this pre-COVID when you didn't have interest rates that were twice what they are now. You didn't have staffing problems. You didn't have valuations that were dropping. But we are as we are, as I said in a recent podcast. So one of the ways that we can end up giving you more than what a bank would say this business is worth is to do seller finance, or at least a significant portion of seller finance, which brings back in a 60-40 deal, a 51-49 deal, where not only do you have them carry back some paper potentially, but you also keep them as an equity deal, as an equity partner in the deal for some of the things we've talked about. But this really points out the importance of your mental attitude, how you perceive things. In chaos, there is opportunity, and I view this as absolutely that. There's opportunity. Banks still need to sell their product, which is capital, and you have an opportunity to have them do that with your deal, if it's a good deal. The other thing that relates back to mental attitude is from a weekly report I got. And what the mentee wrote is, I completed Release Your Brakes. It helped me dial in affirmations, and now I have a completely new outlook on my dreams and reality. Again, how you perceive the situation. And perception, it becomes your reality, whether it's positive or negative. So I would encourage you to think about that. I would encourage you to take the lessons of what's happening in the marketplace and be able to use those to your advantage. We talked about a couple of those. And that's something we cover a lot these days in the mentoring that I do. If you're wondering how to start conversations, go over to brucewhipple.com/free course. You'll see the starters. That link will put you there directly, but you can go to brucewhipple.com and just click on the free course that's there, and that will give you those conversation starters. But whatever you're doing, the time is certainly now to take action. These times won't last forever. You have the ability to point out to a seller that conditions may worsen with respect to interest rates and what banks do. So, wish you had done it earlier, obviously, but the time is now. What are we going to do at this point? And use that to your benefit. For those of you that are serious about doing this, go over to brucewhipple.com. Look under coaching. You'll see the VIP mastermind. There are some spots that are going to be opening up in that. That's the best program that I do. We talk about things like what I just covered in this podcast in more detail, where the opportunities are, how to take advantage of them. It's the best program I offer in terms of mentoring. It's a year program. So take a look at that. You'll see sold out at the bottom. Ignore that. I just want to be sure you will be a good fit before I take any money from you. So that's the reason it says sold out. But there's a few spots that are open in that. That will begin actually next week, depending upon when you are listening to this. So again, if you want the conversation starters, go over to brucewhipple.com/free course. But whatever you decide to do, begin to take action now and understand that in chaos there is certainly an opportunity, and the real question is, how are we going to take advantage of that opportunity?